Hello, everybody. We're back. Now then, I was so fed up and horrified with the painting I did last week that I tore it up and put it in the bin. That's how excited I was about it. And thought to myself, I had better do this again, or at least make a start. And once I made a start, I found I made a finish. So this is what I did of that particular little scene. It's better, shall we say, than what I did last week. Certainly, it's got a nice warm feel to it. It's a little alleyway that you would quite like to go down. In fact, you might even be improved by having a person in it walking down the alleyway. But they weren't designed in, so I'm not going to put them in now. As you can see, the colorings that I used, the Indian yellow and ultramarine blue, and I think I used permanent rose as the pink. That produced quite a nice collection of colors. Then I thought, well, okay, so I've done that. I can't do that as a demonstration. So I thought I'd have another go. This time using colors that are, if you like, a bit counterintuitive. So here we are. Now the colors I decided to use, just as by way of experiment, you know, 3 colors should work regardless of the colors you choose. So I have used a lemon yellow, viridian green, and alizarin crimson. Having looked at it, I think I should have used a permanent rose there instead, but I've used alizarin crimson, so I will go on with alizarin crimson just to see what happens. If I mix the yellow and the green, the viridian green, I get some nice, quite light greeny colors, which will do well for the various plants lying around. If I mix the green viridian with the alizarin, I get a lovely purple. And depending on how deep I make it, it can be nearly black or actually quite pale. So that's good. And if I mix the alizarin with the lemon, I get some quite nice orangey colors. And if I mix all 3 together, I get a rather nice gray. So I'm not without options with this particular mixture. It's not a mixture I recommend because they're all coldish colors. So the picture is, I'm going to struggle to make it have any degree of warmth. It certainly isn't going to look as warm and attractive as that, if you see side by side. There's a sort of greeny cold cast to this. So it won't have the warmth and charm of this, but it's a good exercise to do if you want to push the ante up a bit. That, I don't know if you can see, is a mixture of all 3 colors put together, which I did. Do you remember doing the elephant or the rhinoceros, where we painted it all yellow and then we put in some red from the bottom and let it lie, and then we put in the dark color on the bottom? Well, I did that with that. So there's the lemon yellow at the top, the ultramarine, and then the green climbing up through them, which makes quite an interesting idea. I did think of doing the wall like that and decided against it. Right, so to continue with this painting then, you'll notice that this time I've altered my method of attack. I should have paid attention to something I'm always telling you: paint the bit that appeals to you first. And the bit that appealed to me first when I went back and did this was certainly the journey down the alleyway. So that bit there has become quite an important part of the picture, although it's fairly vague up at the top, and there's not a lot of detail around here. It is in fact the end of the journey as far as the picture is concerned. That's where you're going as you go down this alleyway. You might pass an interesting wall and a nicely colored wall and all the rest of things, but that's where you're going. So if you paint that first, everything else grows out from there. The other thing I was in 2 minds about when I was painting this was whether or not to include this shadowed wall in the painting. So if I take it out like that, right, if I take it out like that, I think the picture loses balance. And I think the composition actually needs that shadow to create a bit of weight on this side of the picture to balance all the dark colors on this side. Okay, so, right, this is the one I'm painting. Put that on the way. Okay, so I think the thing to do now is to put in some of the detail on this part here so that it becomes alive a bit more. So I'm using quite a small brush. This is a number 2 actually, which is rare for me. That one and that one. I'm just wetting off the paints that I'm using so that I can get a bit of color out of them. Right, now what I want to achieve, I think, in most cases, is to get a sort of grey. So I need to mix them all together, but I don't want it to be too dark. Can you see me mixing? You can't. Here we are. So I've wet my Viridian, but that color isn't very dark. Rinse off the brush, pick up some of the alizarin. Now, alizarin's pretty fierce. It really fights even with Viridian. You'd think nothing would kill Viridian, but actually that's quite a nice grey, isn't it? I think. I could add the yellow, which will make it even more of a grey, but I quite like that. It's kind of purpley look to it. So I'll do some of the detailing initially in that to see how I get on. I've already put in the shadow under the eaves, so that's working quite nicely there. But there's a window here. And there's something over here. I'm not quite sure what that is, but we'll just put that in. And then here we also have a shadow going across. And there's a window here. And we've got the doorway here. Taking care not to go over the bush. I don't want to hide the brightness of the bush that's there, because that's part of the attraction. I did kill it a bit on the other picture. Got a bit too enthusiastic. So basically what I've done is to put in something that will do. Now then, that line across there is a bit sudden. I don't like it quite as sudden as that. So I have rinsed off my brush. I'm just putting a line of clean water there to blur the bottom of the line a bit, because that's what shadows do. Right. So while they're that color, and I want to think about the shutters. So I'm going to use Viridian for that. Quite a strong Viridian. Viridian itself would be too bright. So I'm just going to show the brush the alizarin crimson. There you are. That's where it is. Mere touch, because it's so strong. Just to kill off the brightness of the green. That's not bad. And we'll put in the shutters here on either side. I could probably do with making those a bit darker, or maybe the making the window itself a bit darker. There we are. And it's these down here are closed. Okay. I'm beginning to get something there. That needs sorting out up there. So I'll just Right. So I'll go for some bright greens. Now I want the paint to be thicker this time. I want it to sing out. So I'm twisting the brush in the paint to pick up the Viridian. And I'm going to mix the lemon yellow in with it. Should probably have done it the other way around, but there we are. Now that's a nice bright green there. Really singing or dancing green, that one. So we'll put it on top of the bush here. Now, because the background color on this section is in fact lemon yellow, I can use that bright green quite happily against it, and it doesn't shriek as it might in some circumstances. And I can also use it up here because it won't be quite so bright because it's got an underwash of a very pale mauve underneath it. All right. Now, if I add, it's quite difficult just working with these colors. If I add alizarin, sorry, Viridian to that to make it a bit darker, well, we'll see. Not sure that's dark enough. So I'm going to add a tiny touch of the red in just to, oh God, Viridian. That's better, smaller. I'm putting in a bit more of the dark. I'm hoping it's not going to stray too far up there. Keep an eye on it. And put in a bit of the dark here. And there's a bush over here too, so we'll put it in there. And underneath the bush is a terracotta pot. And how on earth am I going to get terracotta out of these? Well, we'll see what we get. I've got a bright orange, which I don't think will be quite good enough. That's better. I've added a touch of my Viridian mix underneath there. Just to so it's just beginning to suggest that there's things there that will be nice to walk past and all that kind of thing. Now I want to get a real dark this time. Real dark. So I can really push up. You want about 3 parts Viridian to 1 part alizarin. I would never have imagined that alizarin was quite such a beast. I always thought Viridian was the beast, but there you are, you see. You learn things, don't you? Right. Now then, there are darks on here. How dry are they? Not too bad. Okay, so down here, on this side of the archway, must be careful not to touch the green because it will, right, that's sorted. This needs a bit of help here. This up here perhaps could be a bit darker. Maybe that could be a touch darker too across the top. While that's drying, we'll just do something with this window. There's a bit of a shadow under there. quite a shadow there. It's throwing a bit of a shadow on the wall there. Okay, it's okay. I think that'll do. That'll do rather nicely. So it's beginning to come together. While we're in this area, I'll use the grey, perhaps darken it up a little bit to put in some kind of chimney, I think it is, there. And there's another one. Where is it? It's here. And the chimney there. There's a bit of a dark along here because this is actually the gable end of that house. Yeah. And then there are some little lines out here. I'm quite sure what they are, but there's something. And we want to put in the wriggly roof here. There we are. So as you can see, just those little details on them beginning to make that area come alive. I'm not going to do any more to that at the moment because if you overwork one bit, you've got to bring everything up to that sort of standard, as I mention quite often. Right, I need to do something with this roof because it's all part of this area here, and it has got a slightly pinky cast to it. So if I put on a sort of pinky wash there, I need to be a bit, come on, get a bit of beef in it. Just let that dry. It's far too bright at the moment, but it will dry up, and then I can put a bit of treatment on it. The same applies there. Right. While we're working down this side, there are various doorways and things in this wall. That was an accident, which is a sort of what they call a cauliflower, but I rather like it, so I think I'm going to leave it. I don't think you would have noticed it if I hadn't drawn your attention to it. And if I can put it as part of the picture, that would be rather nice. So I'm going to use the lemon and the more lemon than there is in there. To see what I can do about creating the doors. What have I got? I've got that colour. Right, okay. Now, if you look at these doors, they've got the rest of the wall. Either it's a different kind of stone, which is quite likely, or they didn't paint that bit. Lord knows what we're up to. It's about here. So if I put that right there, and I'm not trying to do more than suggest that this is a broken shape. When you're putting in these marks, you have to remember the perspective of the wall, of course. And while we're near the bottom there, sorry, take some water out of the brush, pick up some of this dark and just add it to the bottom there. Let it spread a bit, because that's what happens. It's always a bit darker near the bottom of the wall, isn't it? Don't know how far out I'll take that. And see what happens. Right, now I need to put in a dark there, so I'll mix the meridian with the alizarin. It's giving me quite a nice dark. However, that particular dark there in the wall is a bit more wall colored than a straight dark like that. So I'll see what happens if I add a bit of lemon to the mix. Right now it's gone green because I'm so scared of the alizarin, I haven't put enough in. Now what are we getting? That's a better color. Right. So round about here is the and there's a window there, and there's another door there. And this drips down a bit here. Now, if we go up here, there is actually on there another window up here. It's a window or a door. Might be a door higher up. And I can do that by, instead of painting the door in, I'm painting round it, because the door is actually lighter than the surround. So I'm painting the surround a bit darker, and it's got two windows in it, so I'll just put those two windows in here. Yeah, something like that. Okay, I think that will do. This is darker over here. Right. So we'll press on a bit and see with moving across the picture. Now, next to here, there is another wall, which is the edge of a building, and it's dark. It's nearly as dark as the archway itself, with a little streak of light down the side of it. So I need to get a paint I can control. So I mix my red and green together again, rolling the brush in the paint to pick up as much paint as I can, so that I can get this to be quite a nice dark. I'm aching to pick up blue, I have to tell you. However, this is what we do. Now, I could just put a streak down, but that isn't going to build that wall. That wall is made up of blocks of varying tones. And I have to be able to stop short of that white line to create that patch of, to create that patch of bright light there. Now that's quite a thin line. The way to get it is to approach it from this side and stop, and then approach it from this side and stop, and attempt to stop before you hit the other side. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. So I've turned the picture on its side so that I can have more control over what I'm trying to do. So we'll take it up here. The other thing that has to happen is that this edge here right? I'll carry on a bit. We've got nice strong contrast here, so it's showing up nicely. I don't want to make it continuous, so I'm leaving bits out here and there and thinning it out considerably when I get up here, because up here it's actually hidden by a curtain, would you believe? But I've chickened out on the curtain, so I just put the wall in. Now I think when I get up here, I could make this dark a bit paler, so I'll add a bit of water to it. Just a bit. If you add too much, what you get is well, galloping paint. So this is just going lighter and turn into quite an attractive grey. So that's good. And it goes all the way up to the top. At least that's what I decided. And it's got a sort of diagonal up there, right? So let's just put in that little streak of light. And it's these little streaks of light that make the picture sing. So it's worth taking the trouble to get them in nicely. Right.
10 minutes.
Oh dear. Right. I don't want to spoil it by hurrying. So I'll just go on until I finish. Now up here, there is the eaves of a roof, and they do actually help the picture quite nicely. So I'm going to put them in to try and get the shape right. And then that sticks out quite strongly over there. Just adds a finishing touch to it. I think that grey wall actually goes up to there, and it would certainly help the picture if it did. So I'm going to put in going up to there, this grey wall here. Being careful not to touch that dark paint, because what would happen if I touched it, of course, it would just go all the way down the wall and create disaster. Got Peter?
Yes.
Oh, there we are.
We lost you temporarily. I'll pin you again.
Right.
Oh no, lost you again.
Right, well, I'll just continue because I might as well while we're going on.
There you are. Carry on.
Right, I am putting in the pathway. That's far too strong a colour there. Far too strong a colour. And not pink enough. That's too strong as well, isn't it? Right, where are you? Yeah. If I put these in horizontally, just suggesting the pathway as we're coming along. And then when that is drier, I'll be able to put in the edges of the flagstones and all that sort of thing. So the colour is coming around here. Now, to tackle this wall, what I would do would be to use a purple. So I'm going to, if you remember, I got a nice purple mixing the red and the green together. That's because the red's got a lot of blue in it, and so has the green. So, and because the red is so dominant, what you get is a red-blue mix, really, which is quite a pleasing colour. If you get the balance right, getting the balance right is difficult. That's quite nice. If I add water to that, it's quite an attractive grey, grey-violet colour. So I've got to decide how I'm going to tackle this. I think I got carried away in the other picture and did too much. On the other hand, I don't want to do too little either, so you are between the devil and the deep. So what I'm going to do is to just suggest places where it's quite strongly marked down the edge of this window here. It's quite a strong shadow, and it allows you to put in the top of the little cupboard thing that's at the bottom there, and that sort of shadow continues up the side there. But you know, if you find that works, you've got to find some other way of doing it, as you can't do that over the whole wall. You've got to vary it a bit, leave bigger gaps or a line, so helping to create the perspective and are actually visible across the divide there. Just one last tip. We've got a few minutes left. If you're putting water to the streak of dark, and then introduce your dark into it, it will that gives you that shadow on that wall, which in turn provides the balance to the picture. Obviously that's not finished, but it's giving you the basic shadow is there, and then I can put in the pipe, the down pipe if I want to, and darker shadows or lighter shadows, but you have at least got it stated, and it's on a fairly straightish line, but because the edge is feathered, it looks just a little bit like a wall.